All aboard! Welcome to the All Aboard podcast. I am your host, Brandon DeFreitas, and do we have a special show for you today? I am joined by my guest. I believe I'm not supposed to say your name. Is that correct?
That is correct. I would really prefer if we kept my identity confidential.
That's totally fine. And this is for our Patriots Go for Four podcast, our league, the Redraft League. It's week 4, entering week 4. We haven't done a podcast, and I believe of let you down. Can you at least give me an alias? Like, how do I refer to you?
You can refer to me as Bill Belichick.
All right. Well, Bill, it's nice to meet you. It's nice to have you on the podcast. And for anyone who was around back in the Bryant University college radio days, Bill was a frequent caller, and he was just as adamant during the radio shows that we not say his name over the air.
In this age of social media, people come at you. There's witch hunts. And if you're a prominent member of society, you can't have your identity out there everywhere.
Well, I certainly appreciate you taking the time to jump on and talk some fantasy football with us. But Bill, we do want to welcome you back to the league. You were an original owner in the league for so many years. You kind of created the famed what did we call it back then? The alliance that used to reject all these trade offers in the past. You've returned. Are you hoping to rebuild the alliance here?
First of all, I want to go back on what you said you used to reject. The Alliance was not a rejecter, it was a regulator. You guys now have nothing. You have no system in place. Everything goes through. You can trade McCaffrey for some guy who's on the bench. The league is gone. There's nothing anymore. You have let chaos run throughout this league, Brandon. And I can tell you who's going to win every year because they're in control.
Who's that?
Alex.
I mean, that is true. Although Alex last year was accused of truly ripping off your co-owner.
I think that the alliance was needed to do many things, which I'll explain a little later in the show, kind of getting more into the details of that. But I want to right now go through the history of this league and how Brandon DeFreitas, the greatest commissioner that this league ever saw, resigned his power and gave it over to one of the most corrupt commissioners ever, Alex, his brother. I need to know how this happened, Brandon, because that is where this league started to go downhill.
I'll take you through the history, and one point of clarification: was I the commissioner the last time you were in the league?
Yes, you were the commissioner. Things were good. We were in a golden age, and then now I'm back, and it is not the same. It's not.
Well, so basically what happened, there was a year where, we've been going on since 2006, junior year of high school for us back then. And, it's a long league, lots of history. And then I went through a period where I just lost a little bit of interest in fantasy football. And at that time, I remember Alex was like, let's launch the league. And I was like, I don't know. The interest appears to have dipped. Maybe it's the end of our league. And Alex was like, all right, well, I'll do all the work, you just join as an owner. And Alex took over for a year and really saved the league that season. And since then he's been the commish. But I do want to clarify, Mr. Bill Belichick, my apologies, or faking Bill Belichick. Because I feel like it started off with Alex as commissioner, but it's really been a co-commissioner arrangement since, because there have been a couple of occasions where Alex has attempted to, use his powers in terms of picking up players after 1:00 to fill in a kicker position or something in the past. I've been here to sort of regulate the Alex commissionership.
And yet you let the person who is breaking all these rules become the commissioner of your league.
I suppose I did, but it is the reason the league is still going right now. And I'm glad it is, because we do have some rich history. We have some owners like yourself returning to the league, and hopefully we continue to do that and drive forward here.
I mean, if you say this is driving forward, just existing, yes, I guess a bunch of guys who were just, on the site, but there's not that there's not that competitiveness anymore because there's no regulations. For those of you who don't remember, I was one of the leaders of what we had called the Alliance. The Alliance was a regulatory group of men who were dedicated to make sure that this league ran well, that there weren't any unfair trades, and that people who attempted unfair trades were put in their place, and that they were not going to make any of these trades ever again. So we did. We texted each other. We talked about trades, and things that shouldn't have happened didn't happen. And then people came after us because we were rejecting trades, but the trades weren't fair. And now that the alliance is gone, people can do whatever they want. And especially Alex as commissioner, he can do whatever he wants anyway. But now he has powers that no one else has, and he could stack his team.
Yeah, we certainly wouldn't want that. I will say I'm a strong proponent of, I believe that even unfair trades should go through the system and not be rejected, because fairness is really just your opinion. And if two owners want to do a trade and they're both trying to win, I have no problem with it, even if it does look uneven on the surface. What I'm really concerned about is collusion. And if an owner is doing or colluding together to stack one roster, like we don't want that. And that's really what we have our trade process in. I do agree with you, Mr. Bill, though, that I think the trade system is broken. I don't think we need the voting process anymore, but we maybe need to organize it in a different way, where maybe there's a trade committee or something, like just to discuss if a trade looks like collusion. And that's really to me should be the only reason it gets rejected. I
Hold
do
on,
want to.
Brandon. Hold on. I want to get back to something that you said that I think most of our viewers are going to find absolutely appalling. You think that I should be able to trade Dalvin Cook for Odell Beckham and it should go through?
If both owners want to make the move and both owners are trying to win by making the move, yes, I
What
believe
if
it should
I
go through.
trade McCaffrey for Edelman?
Well, Julian Edelman's not in the league, so I mean, like there probably is a sliding scale. Like at that point, it's like the player's not
But
even
you
in the
have
league.
no system to block that, Brandon. There is
We
nothing to stop that trade in reality in our league.
Well, there actually still is the same system we had along the same time as the alliance was in the league. The only difference is we don't have 5 or 6 owners colluding to change the votes.
That is ridiculous. First of all, there was no collusion, and you guys like to come after the alliance because one of your rivals, Chris Burns, won 3 times in the league during that time span. So you like to blame it on the alliance, so you don't have to go back and say, you know what, maybe I was just not a great fantasy owner.
Well, I'm definitely not a great fantasy owner, Mr. Bill. So I agree with you there. And Chris Burns won two years, not 3. I will clarify that. But yeah, no,
My mistake.
but yeah, no, I appreciate your sentiment. I just truly like, I think trades should go through immediately, and then there should be some sort of system where the league is like, hey, this looks like collusion, this looks ridiculous, like we need to take an extra look at that. But the whole 24-hour voting period, I don't know. If you have good owners and they're in the league and they're agreeing to trades, I want it to be able to go through quickly. I want people to be able to make trades on Sunday morning. That'd be fantastic, but we can't do that under our current system.
So I'm going to agree to disagree with you. We do have to get to a quick break. I got to throw in this right clearly. So we have our sponsor, Ernie Bach Jr., located on Route 1 on the Auto Mile. Ernie Bach Jr., everything you're looking for. Did want to get back to something else, Brandon. You know, I think we're going around in circles here on the trade policy, but I think overall, don't you think there need to be more regulations in our league? Doesn't there have to be some body that can prevent the commissioner from overtaking everything?
I think it would be nice to have some sort of, some sort of rules or something. Yeah, I agree. Because I think right now what we have is dates back like 10 plus years. I don't think it works. I think it's broken. And I do agree with you. There needs to be some sort of regulation too, to like to help even like owners like Kevin Lee, who I know in the past, he's called it the DeFreitas Alliance, and actually he's called it the DeFreitas regime. So I don't want him to feel like we're just making rules to create power. So I agree. It would be it'd be nice to have like, different representatives from the league come in and have a little bit more of a democracy. But my whole goal with that though is would be to help improve rules and get rid of the archaic trade system. I'm trying to think of some other things, but get rid of defenses, like all this old stuff we have, and I just want to change. And it's tough to change when you're having everyone vote on it.
It is tough to keep moving forward in this day and age. Definitely, I can definitely empathize with that. I just
I
feel that there
I
is
don't want. Sorry, Mr. I don't want this to turn into like politics where it's so bipartisan where nothing gets done. But I do agree that like some sort of additional regulation could be a good thing, assuming that we're able to make decisions and move forward.
My next topic of conversation I needed to ask you about was the legendary, probably the best known fantasy owner in our league,
The,
the
the
most
Phantom
legendary,
Reject.
John Krieger. Now, John Krieger is a man of dignity. Going back, he has never rejected a trade that he felt was fair, and he is an honorable man. Why is he not the commissioner of this league? Someone we can trust.
Well, and John, I know John's wedding is coming up. I haven't seen him for a while. I have nothing but the respect and I miss, spending time with John. So I'll start off my answer that way. And then I'll quickly rebuttal and say the reason he's not commissioner is he hasn't shown up to the draft for the last two seasons.
Yes, that may be true. However,
I mean, how can you be if you're not showing up to the draft? It's
I
kind of
mean
tough to own it. Yeah, he has the
we need
co-manager
someone we
now
can
this year because of
trust.
it.
Brandon, we need someone we can trust. The people in this league are sinking. Your people are sinking. And you're not doing anything. You're the only one who can do anything. You're our leader, the voice of the people.
Well, I thought Alex was commissioner.
He is commissioner, but he's not the voice of the people. I'll tell you that, Brandon.
Your sentiment is totally understood.
Now, I also heard that in my absence, things really went off the rails, and you guys were considering getting John Krieger out of the league entirely. Is there any truth to that?
There, and again, like I'm glad I started off with my speech about John before I don't want this to seem like I'm trashing on him, but there absolutely is truth to that. And the reason
I'm
we were
so
so
disappointed.
well, the
But
reason
continue.
the reason we're so glad that you joined and helped co-manage for him is the auto draft is terrible on NFL.com. And last season, Krieger was auto drafted 5 or 6 tight ends. I can't remember. And it kind of ruined his season. And I don't know why he doesn't want to come to the draft. I don't understand that. I hope that it's not always the case because it's fun to have him there. And maybe he comes next year and that's great. But I think it's really important for owners to draft their own team, get players that they like, and then that creates a more efficient market in the trade market and waivers and everything. So yeah, I think that was the reason we were considering it. We didn't want to have an auto pick, and that goes for any owner in the league. Like, um, if you're not managing your team, like we're unfortunately going to have to look in another direction. And the reason we didn't is because John's not just an original 12 owner. John is one of the creators of the league. It was myself and John who launched the league, not Alex, believe it or not. So to get rid of such a creator and such a historic owner in the league, it just wasn't something we wanted to do. And we're glad to bring you on board to come in as a co-manager and help keep him in the league. And maybe next year you guys have separate teams.
Well, I am glad you guys kept John Krieger because he is a legend. He is a man who built this league with his hands. But the fact that you were considering getting rid of him, were you going to do it through text? Was this through email? How are you going to replace him? Like, I don't understand what this has come to. I understand you want a competitive league, but this is John Krieger, a respectable man, a man who should have been but was never elected commissioner. I tried to get him to run one year, and he didn't want to.
Well, we
But
had
anyway,
elections. Wow.
I don't think there was an election, but we were trying to get the alliance to, coup d'etat and maybe put someone else in power there.
Well, I can't really to answer your question. I can't really speak to the mode of the the type of communication that was going to be used in the hypothetical event that Krieger was removed from the league because we never got that far down the road. And luckily, we found the solution. And I think it's been fun to have you guys managing together.
I am thankful that you guys have offered us to be in the league this year. Definitely been fun, but the top stories have not. They, some people might say that's a good thing that the top stories have gone away. Um, there's not that interactive piece there was before. I hope that can come back at some point.
I
Um,
I agree with you, and I think that's one of the reasons we started to do the podcast a couple years ago is to try to like create that excitement about the league and create that communication. I think NFL.com, maybe we'll move to Sleeper next year because the communication and the ability to have like the chat going isn't as it's the functionality isn't great. It's hard to maintain that constant communication about league mates. And to your point, like you were in the league back in the college days where it was almost like an instant messenger. There was activity all the time. People were calling each other, doing trades. Like that's what we want this league to be. Like we want more trades, we want more activity, more discussions, and to sort of keep it more interesting because that's what you're in it for. You're in it to stay in touch, stay together. And I think unfortunately, as high school and college, we were all really closely like spending a lot of time together, and then as time has passed on, like I think people have gone in different directions and it's harder to maintain contact. And it's nice we have this so we don't go a whole year without seeing each other, but it would be nice, to your point, to have it be more interactive and more entertaining, and like maybe top stories is the way. Maybe some of these podcasts will help. So I agree with you. I think that there is certainly some improvement that could be done there.
to get back to some NFL stuff here, Patriots Brady on Sunday. What are you thinking, BD?
I'll be at the game with Alex. So if anyone else has tickets, you know where to, well, hopefully have our numbers, you know where to find us. We'll have a tailgate. It's gonna unfortunately it's gonna be a tough game for the Patriots. I thought they would have a pretty strong defense, and so far it hasn't been that much better than last year's version. And they're having trouble stopping the run, which is really creating all these like long drives against them. So I don't think they're at a point, and I think they might be later in the season where things start to mesh a little bit better because I do believe they have the talent, but I don't think they're at a point where they can really compete with Tampa. So I think it's going to be a Tampa win by double digits.
I completely agree, and I hope the crowd cheers for Brady. After all he's done for this community, after all he's done for New England, and the way he was oisted from here, and we wouldn't pay the greatest quarterback of all time. He went to Tampa. He won another Super Bowl. Belichick gave up on him. I would hope the fans at least respect Brady.
So I've thought about this a lot because I'm going to be there, and I've decided I won't cheer and I won't boo Tom Brady. I will stand there silently when he gets announced. I'll stand there silently during whatever cheesy, tribute video they have. Obviously, appreciate the time he had here. He brought a lot to the city, brought a lot to the area, and I'm appreciative of that.
Clearly,
I'm
you don't appreciate. You're not even clapping for the man who was on your team for over 20 years. The guy started at 01. He wasn't even a first round draft pick, not a second round draft pick, not a third round draft pick.
well,
He
we know he
came
was
in
the
here.
sixth.
He beat out Bledsoe. Then he beat the Rams, the greatest team on turf. And you're not going to clap for that man?
I am not, because he's kind of. I think the issue is he left the team. There was definitely this
We wouldn't
feud.
pay him.
Yeah, though there's a feud on both sides, and I think that's the people who lose in that is the fans, and sort of his attitude since he's left the team towards the area. I don't know, like I just think he's been disrespectful towards the New England area ever since he left. So I understand the feud with Belichick and the team. I just think like at some point both sides need to drop it because the fans are the ones losing. I'm not defending one side or the other. I want to make that clear. Like the Patriots have stunk. They made the wrong decision. Belichick, yeah, unfortunately, like if he doesn't win this season, like he deserves to be criticized and questioned for it. And then on Brady's side, like just let it go, man. You went and you won a Super Bowl. Like enough of like who did what and who was a bigger part of it. Just it was a good time, and like stop the feud for the fans is my message.
I think most fans at this point in New England have chosen one side or another. I don't think there's a lot of middle people. You are a very rational man, very smart guy, all those things, and you kind of look at it holistically in that sense. However, I am much more instinctual with how I feel about these things. And I really do feel that Brady is the one who got screwed over in this whole thing. I think Brady, he took so many cuts in pay over the years so we could get players in here. Belichick didn't surround him with players. Belichick didn't want to pay him. Belichick wanted to prove that he could win with anyone as quarterback. And clearly that's not true.
Well, let's call a spade a spade. If Brady had stayed in New England, I don't think they would be having nearly the success that Tampa's having. Tampa was a team that had the talent and the cap space to completely invest in Tom Brady and invest in bringing Antonio Brown. And like they had that great defense too. Like they're spending everything they're doing and mortgaging the future in order to go for the short run. And that was something that New England, which was short on cap space, like at the time, like they just wouldn't be able to do it. So I think this is one of the circumstances where, I think the Patriots made the wrong decision not bringing Tom Brady back, but I at the same time, like Brady was always better off leaving. So like I don't know. I can't like sit here and say that management completely erred in their decision. Like, but I,
But Brendan,
Tampa,
how much money did they? So if Brady had stayed 1 year, we probably wouldn't have been good the past year. But then we had all this money this year. How much
yeah,
money did we spend in the offseason this year?
we would have been fine this year. I agree with that, but like we still don't have the pieces that Tampa Bay has. And I think at the end of the day, Tom would have still opted to leave. I don't see the part I don't believe in the narrative that's being pushed by Tom Brady is I wasn't wanted back, and that's the reason I'm not here, which is half true. You weren't wanted back. Agreed. That's insulting. But you were never coming back to New England. Like he wanted to prove himself just as much as Bill wanted to prove himself. So like don't feed me this crap that the only reason he's not back here is because the Patriots chose not to get him. Like he's full of
Everybody in the NFL, all these GMs, they know two things, right? They know that a good quarterback is extremely valuable. It's like finding a diamond in the NFL. If you have a good quarterback, you can do you can do anything. We have won many championships because of Brady. Two, the cap is crap. They could have manipulated money. They could have let people on defense go. They could have got the weapons for Brady. Maybe not that particular year, but definitely years before, years this year. If we could have signed Brady to a 2-year contract, we could have told him, look, this might be a tough year, but next year we're gonna get you whoever you want. We could have done that, and you can't say we would not be in contention right now if we had Brady.
I agree with you that the cap is crap and they could have gotten weapons before. They had done certain things to accelerate bonuses and pay players a little bit more, like Stephon Gilmore, before last year, to the point where they were cap strapped last year. They clearly weren't going into this offseason, so they could have done it after. But was Brady going to play last year here in New England with cut rate weapons for a second straight year that made it look like he was terrible? Like let's call it for what it is. He looked horrible in 2019, and I thought he was done as a result of it. And the reality is it was because the Patriots didn't have the weapons and they couldn't have brought him. Look what they put out on the field with Cam Newton last year. Like they still didn't have the weapons last year, and it's questionable whether they have it this year too. So I don't know. My only thing is that like I think I think Brady's camp wants it to seem like the only reason he's not back here is because of Belichick, because they do want to like look like the better ones here in the breakup. But the reality is both sides wanted to move on. And I think it would be nice if they just put it aside and said, hey, we went in different directions and we're both happy we did. It's over.
I think that, well, it is probably both in some senses of the word. I do think that Brady was intrigued by weapons elsewhere. However, I think when you have a superstar like that, you have to surround them with pieces to entice them to stay. But regardless,
So
I
let's go
think
back.
that
Hold on, Bill. Let's go back to 2019. The Patriots brought in Antonio Brown. They tried to surround him with pieces, and I know this is going on YouTube, so let's not go into why Antonio Brown didn't stay the 2019 season. But you don't consider that trying to surround him with elite pieces?
I think that to an extent. However, I think part of the reason the Patriots wanted to sign Antonio Brown at that time was because they knew he would be cheaper than getting a wide receiver that at the time wasn't involved in a scandal. People knew that things were going on with Antonio Brown at that time. So he was willing to come to the Patriots for a little less money, which is fine. He's great talent. I love Antonio Brown as a player is unbelievable. However, I think they just tried to get guys that were cheap at that point. And if you look at what happened after, they got Josh Gordon, they had him, they had Antonio, they got Cam Newton. All those guys were willing to play for nickels on the dollar because of circumstance, because of injury or what have you. So I don't think they necessarily got Antonio Brown solely for the Brady factor. I think they wouldn't have got him had he required a large salary. So while I do see what you're saying, I think the major factor that Belichick saw was he has talent and he's not costing the organization a lot of money.
So I do see what you're saying in terms of like, and this is something you can criticize the Patriots on over the years is sometimes they're more concerned with the value than the actual player they're getting. And you kind of saw that this offseason too, where all you heard from the team was, hey, why go get one of these elite wide receivers for 18 million a season when you can bring in two tight ends for that price? Well, your tight ends look like crap so far this season. Jonnu Smith cost you the week last week. He dropped everything thrown in the sight. So I see what you mean. The Patriots sometimes are more concerned about value than the actual, like getting the talents on the field. And the reason is because Belichick's one of those coaches who believes that his coaching, his system is, you know, is so effective that it can make up for um for issues elsewhere. To Can't find the word, but you know what I'm saying.
I totally agree with you, and this is going to tie back to Brady for me. I think you're right. Belichick does not value talent the way that other coaches do. He values his system. He believes he can put anyone back there and still win. So I think when the time came for Brady to come up under contract, he didn't have the same respect for Brady as someone in Tampa did or someone like the Chargers did. These other teams that really valued Brady, Belichick did not value him. I think he thought, I'm not going to pay this 40-something-year-old quarterback all this money. He probably won't play that much longer. He's not that talented anymore. And I don't need him to win. I think that is what Belichick was thinking. So I don't think it was a necessity for Belichick to keep Brady like it would be on another team. If Belichick was playing for the Seahawks, I think they would have made it a priority to have it.
I agree with you. I don't think I've ever refuted that side of it, that the Patriots did not want Tom to return. And I think it was like you said that they believed Tom was declining. They didn't think he would play much longer. And they thought that they would be able, you've heard this all the time coming out of the organization. The quote from Mike Lombardi, was it? Or slipping my mind, but that they can win with any of the top 15 quarterbacks in the league. That's like kind of what we've been led to believe that they believe. And I think their actions kind of prove that they believe that. So they didn't think they needed Tom to win. I think they've been proven wrong in terms of his impact there. But I think what I really just keep defending is just the fact that we want to rip the Patriots for that decision, but I don't think there was really any way that Tom was returning to the Patriots that offseason. I think he had his mindset that he was going to leave. And the evidence I would bring up to prove that is the year before he had his contract dispute, and then in order to resolve the contract dispute, he had them put in an agreement that they wouldn't put the franchise tag on him. If if you were if you wanted to return to the Patriots the following season, you wouldn't have gone out of your way to remove that from the contract so that you would have the ability to leave. And I know you're going to say the option to leave, but I don't know. I just believe he was ready to move on, and that's why he wanted it, and that's why he pulled the franchise tag. And look, end of the day, like I don't think there was any way Tom Brady was playing quarterback for the Patriots in 2020.
It's an interesting take, but I do want to say this from this other perspective. I do think that prior to Brady leaving, most people in New England, not most common fans, but I would say most sports reporters, most sports analysts in the Boston area, I think they really did think it was Belichick. I heard Michael Felger say, "Oh, as long as we could have Hoyer back there and win and make the playoffs." At one point, he said that. He said we could put Brian Hoyer back there because he's an average Joe quarterback and we can make the playoffs because Belichick is that good on defense and running the ball. And they believe that. And that's why I defend Brady a little bit, because I think it was for Brady less about the money, less, yes, more about weapons, but also about the respect that wasn't given. Belichick did not think he needed Brady. He did not respect Brady. He did not care if he left. And I think that is what was so damaging to Brady's psyche that led to this kind of divorce, if you will.
So it's funny you say he did not think he needed Brady. I still think he doesn't think he needs Tom Brady.
Oh,
I
I
know
agree.
I know Tom Brady won a Super Bowl, but I don't think that changes their thinking in the organization.
I
Um,
completely agree.
so and look, I feel like I'm a good person to answer, to respond to that, because I was one of the ones who before last year would have said, and I still kind of lean that direction sometimes, is like I was a believer that it was the system that Belichick can win with any. I didn't think Brian Hoyer, that's preposterous, but I thought that with a average NFL quarterback, the Patriots would make the playoffs like the Matt Castle year, and or at least have a chance like that year. And I truly believe that it was more about the system than Tom Brady. Yeah, I have egg on my face. It was completely wrong. Like the system is not more important than the players on the field, and Tom Brady's proven that. And it's been proven multiple times. Like, look at Peyton Manning when he went from Indianapolis to Denver. Like the whole rivalry went from Patriots Indy to Patriots Denver. Like it's not about the team, like the players make the team run. I agree with that, and I overrated the system. Um Unfortunately, I don't think the Patriots like really think their thinking has changed at all. I think Belichick and even the Shanahans like believe that their system is so good that they can plug in just about anyone and look like geniuses. So there's a middle ground. I think maybe like what I'm trying to say, not to always play the middle, is like the players on the field matter a whole heck of a lot, and more than Belichick, gave Brady credit, and that probably led to his psyche, like you were saying. But the system matters too. So I think you got to have a little bit of both. And that's why, I look at the Buccaneers, like they just have such overwhelming talent on the field. And I think that's primarily why they're winning, because Bruce Arians is just a garbage. I mean, he's an okay offensive coach, but just a garbage overall coach. And they can still win with him.
I had an interesting question that I asked a relative. If Brady was with Arians for his whole career instead of Belichick, how many Super Bowls does he win? Now, my other component of that question is assuming Arians is not only the coach but the GM, like Bill Belichick. So I think that to just give you the context of that, BD, so you can answer it. I think Arians, I'm assuming he would get more players to surround Brady, even though he's a worse coach.
I agree with that. So
So,
you
how
want
many
me?
Super Bowls do you think Brady would have if he was with Arians?
So Arians is coach and GM or coach?
He's coach and GM like Belichick.
I would say maybe two. I
You think
and
only two?
I think only two, and the reason is that like I know it's frustrating, and when we're Patriots fans, we look at how they manage the cap and all that, and their budgets and what they do, and I think what they do is good for longevity. And you look at Kansas City right now, like they look like absolute juggernauts. They're 1-2 right now because they have no depth on that team. All they paid all their superstars a ton of money, and they just like don't have enough depth, and they have some issues elsewhere. And I think that's eventually what like look, Tampa Bay is going to really go down the hill when Brady retires. But say Brady was 24 right now, and this was his setup. If Bruce Arians was in charge, they would run this thing to the ground. They'd pay everyone, and then end up getting in trouble, and then like Brady wouldn't be surrounded by much talent. And I mean, look at Peyton Manning in his career; he had two. I think the difference from two to like 6 and 7 is, being in a good organization and having like good management behind it. So now that I'm thinking about it, I'll up to three. I'd say three. I think half of it is Brady, half of it is the organization, and the fact that they were able to rebuild the team because they, the way they managed that, I thought was impressive in New England, how they had the two different runs. A lot of other people just have the one run. So as great as Tom Brady is, I don't think he gets anywhere close to six if he doesn't have Bill Belichick as coach and GM.
I think I probably agree with you. I think that in terms of the 20-year run, um, he would definitely have more with Belichick just because of what you said, the conservativeship, the making sure that they were spending money fiscally over the 20-year period. I do agree with you. However, I do think that there is a bad point to that too. There were a lot of years where I feel like his talent was a little wasted because they had no one for some of these years. I mean, you look back at
I think they could have been more aggressive. Yes, I totally agree with that. And I think Brady got frustrated with that over time because, like you said, he was taking a discount, and then it wasn't going into the receiving core. And I remember he got annoyed when they traded Dion Branch, and like players that he liked were going out the door, and he didn't like it. So, yeah, I agree. Like definitely, you know, they could have been more aggressive with what they had, but it is hard to argue with 6 Super Bowls in 20 years.
now the other thing that I wanted to bring up is I'm hearing a lot of people on the radio that are saying the Patriots are going to get to 10 wins. I don't agree with that. I think we're getting 4 wins. I think we get four, and
I,
I think that's it.
I don't think it's going to be four. And if you asked me before, keep in mind it's a 17 game season this year. And before the season, I would have told you 10 and a half as my line. And again, like this is why, like you complimented me earlier on. Like I'm not a great fantasy owner, and I'm definitely not a great analyst either, Bill. Like I was wrong, and the thing is, I try to take different information as I have it and adjust my opinions. Um, Now looking at the roster they have and what they have, like 17 games, I think they're probably looking at 9 wins. And my reasoning for it is they look rough right now. It looks like the 2020 Patriots right now, let's be honest. But I think you look at what happened with the Buccaneers last year. The Patriots brought in all these different pieces, these new pieces, and they're trying to gel. They're trying to get it together, and it just takes time. Like we want it to work out right away, but with the reduced practices and training camp and everything, it's just going to take a little extra time for this to gel. I think the defense is going to click, but it's probably going to click, um, you know, maybe midway through October or something. So we're going to wait long. They're probably starting 1-3, but I think they'll get up to 9 wins. And I think they'll do it in the fashion where we're like, maybe they're in the playoff hunt later in the season, but uh, you know, with the way that offense looks and Mac will improve as the season goes along, like I don't think they have the horses to really make a run and be, a 10-win playoff team.
So I'm looking through the schedule here, and you tell me who you think wins or loses. I actually, after looking game by game, I'm going to say we get 5 or 6 wins. I'm going to up
All
it
right.
just.
I'll play this activity, but I want it known on the record that I hate playing the schedule wins and losses. But I'll humor you.
All right, Bucs, Pats.
Bucks,
Okay, so that's a loss. Patriots, Texans.
Patriots,
Okay, that's reasonable. Cowboys, Patriots.
probably the Cowboys. The way Dak looks this year,
Okay. Jets, Patriots.
Patriots.
Patriots, Chargers.
It's gonna be a
Be
tough
careful,
game.
Brandon. Be
Uh,
careful.
Is that a home game? You
I
don't have the
don't
home or away.
I don't know.
You don't know.
It's a mystery.
I'm gonna take the Patriots. Justin Herbert's a
Over
second year.
Justin Herbert.
Yeah, he's a second year quarterback. He hasn't. Did they play last year? I don't think they played. No, they played. No, they did. They killed them last year. So, yeah, I don't necessarily think the Chargers are going to come in and blow doors. So I'll take the Patriots.
How many points do you think we'll have to put up to beat the Chargers?
Chargers haven't. I mean, like, did they put up that many points against the Washington football team this season? They didn't put it. They didn't put up a whole lot against the Cowboys either. I think you're overrating the Chargers over there.
I'm just bringing it up because I only think we can beat teams if we
This
can
isn't.
win
This
with
is. This
under
isn't
20
fantasy.
points.
This isn't fantasy football.
I agree. This is the real world, Brandon. Get used to it. Patriots, Panthers.
I'll take the Patriots in that one.
That's a tough one too. I think Patriots, Chargers,
It
and
is a tough one.
Patriots,
It's
Panthers are 50-50. Well, I think they win one of those games.
all right. Well, that's you. Keep going.
Browns, Patriots.
You take the Browns there. The Browns are they have a good defense and great running game. And like I said, the Patriots' biggest struggle is the running game. So Nick Chubb will have a big day that day.
Patriots, Falcons.
Patriots, Falcons are a dumpster fire. Matt Ryan's
Titans,
cooked.
Patriots.
Patriots, Titans defense is an absolute dumpster fire.
Patriots, Bills.
I think you can mark me down. I think the Patriots will split with the Bills this year. So
Interesting.
1-1 for the Bills games. I Josh Allen was really, really good last year. I know he looked great in this last game, and I'm not trying to throw cold water on Josh Allen, but you're talking a little later in the season here. I think the defense will have gelled, so I think they'll do a split with the Bills.
Patriots, Colts.
Gonna take the Patriots. The Colts are not looking good this year. Carson Wentz, probably his last year as a starting quarterback.
Patriots, Jags.
Patriots, another bad team.
Patriots, Dolphins. We lost the first one. Remember that.
I agree. Remember, and this one's down in Miami. That said, though, I'm just not a Tua believer in the Patriots. I think much like last year, where the Patriots beat the Dolphins to start the year, and the Dolphins were improving throughout the season. I think the Patriots are going to be improving throughout the season. So I'll take the Patriots.
I wish I had as much faith as you do, Brandon. You're a true believer. A true believer. You're like that little kid that's looking up at the shooting star and making a wish, and hoping he ends up with the princess. Like, it's just not going to happen. These guys are not good, Brandon.
So, is that the end of the schedule? Do we have a final record for what I came up with?
I think with you, it was you got to 9.
Did I actually get to 9 by picking the games?
I think you did. You got to exactly 9.
Well, I'm going to tell you that was completely random. So I was going to laugh if I ended up at 11 and you just dumped on me.
I just think you're crazy, Brandon. I think this team is in shambles. We don't have wide receivers. They get no separation. I love Mac Jones. He looks great. He's a smart kid, but he has no one to throw to. The tight ends, as you said earlier in the show, they don't look good. I don't think they have the talent. I don't think it's going to matter how much they gel. And the defense has been really struggling.
If a great Twitter follow is Evan Lazar, he's one of the Patriots beat writers, and he did something the other day where he was, analyzing the film, and I think the receivers are getting separation. I think the issue right now is the offensive line is not giving Mac any time to. I mean, they're blitzing Mac. That's the whole strategy. So, I would say it's the offensive line, and I would criticize the play calling. We got to get Mac in more advantageous blitz beaters, quicker passes and things that are easier wins for him, because I think Aguilar is getting separation. You saw Bourne played pretty well last game. So I know these aren't household names, and Jacoby Myers too. You're gonna laugh at me, but N'Keal Harry should be back this week as well. And Mac showed a lot of rapport with him in training camp in the preseason. So I think they look, they do need help. They need more pass catchers, but I think they have enough now to get to 9 wins.
I think the other problem too is we're looking at tape from like a Jets game. The Jets, one of the worst organizations in the league. We're looking at tape from Miami. They're not exactly the best team in the league. We're looking at tape from the Saints. Come on, Brandon. You're better than this.
The Saints have a really good defense. I know Jameis Winston. I'm sorry, that guy's just a total joke. Like I can't.
But what I'm saying, Brendan, is we have not played a full team. I mean, obviously, if a team is good at offense, they're going to keep our offense off the field as much as possible. We really haven't played a complete team. I mean, I actually like Winston, but I don't think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league.
I mean, I can't. I think Winston's a piece of crap, but and I don't think he'll be starting much longer. I think they're going to turn to Taysom Hill at some point here and do more of a ground and pound offense. But yeah, I think the Saints are a legitimate team. I think they were the better team and clearly showed on Sunday. And they should have beaten the Dolphins, except, Damian Harris fumbled, cost them the game. And I feel like some conservative play calling cost them that game too. So yeah, I look, they're going to improve as the season goes along. I know that sounds so cliche, but they're building towards something, and it's been a tough early schedule, and now they have a really tough game against Tampa. I mean, I feel like I'm one of the more optimistic fans, and I just don't see any way they can win the game on Sunday. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough start, but I do think they rebound. I think that's going to be the difference between 2020 and 2021. By the end of the season, we'll be excited for next year.
I think you have a lot of optimism for this team, and I just want to ask a couple questions here about this.
All
Now,
right.
how many points do you think our offense is going to put up per game the last 5 games of the season?
I think they're capable of averaging, I would say, maybe like 19 and a half to 21 points a game.
So we're going to have to win a lot of low scoring games.
Yes, absolutely. That's where it's going to end up.
And we're going to be very dependent on our defense.
That was always going to be the case this year, no matter what happened. And I just think the defense is going to gel and get better by that time. And, I said 19 and a half, and then I wanted to increase it to 21. But yeah, I do think the defense is going to improve enough to limit to under that and win enough games.
Even though this is a defense that is unproven right now and has played Tua, Winston, who you personally don't like, and the Jets quarterback, Zach Wilson. These are the quarterbacks that they played, and they have struggled. What happens when, Tom Brady comes to town or Dak Prescott comes to town?
Well, that's why I had both those as losses, Mr. Bill. I believe you remember. But yeah,
and Josh Allen.
I'm more concerned.
I know he's not great, but
I'm concerned with the run defense more than I'm concerned with the pass defense. Gilmore will hopefully at some point return. And even if he doesn't, like, they have some pass rushers. I do like enough pieces in the secondary. And I just I'm confused at why the run defense doesn't look any different than it did last year. Devon Godchow is getting eaten up in the middle of that defensive line. He's supposed to be a two-gapper, and he's getting pushed around. I don't know. Like I think at some point maybe they sit him for Carl Davis, and maybe he's able to plug the hole a little bit more. Or Barmore is not big enough really to play the two-gapping role, but they really need to figure that out, because right now, like, if you're in low-scoring games and you can't stop the run, like, you have no chance. And look at the game Sunday. It was 21-13, 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And the Saints go on, what was it, a 6.5-minute drive and score a touchdown. And were there any passes of note? And there barely any. Like, they just ran the ball right down the throat of that defense, and they gave up a long drive. The game against Miami, the defense had a chance to make a stop, get it back to the offense. Same thing. Miami just marched down the field. Like, if you can't stop the run, and you're a defensive team, you're in real trouble.
Uh, I do think that to some extent you're right. They are going to gel better, but I think the biggest problem I see is we're not talking usually like, oh, our defense is giving up a lot of points, but Brady's here, so we have the offense. Nothing's working right now, Brandon. Nothing.
I don't think nothing's
This
working.
isn't funny. This is our team. This is who we used to be.
I I don't I mean I choose not to completely, put my identity with the Patriots clearly with what's behind me, but yeah, I I don't think they're doing nothing right. I just think there's some cleanup that needs to happen, some adjustments, and really, if you can, if they can improve the run defense, get them into some third and longs with this pass rush, and then on offense, start to average something closer to 20 points a game. Yeah, I do think this is could be a playoff. They could win at a playoff rate. I just think they've put themselves in too big a hole at the beginning of the season already to turn it around and make the playoffs.
Well, I'll hold you to that. I'll hold you to what did you say, 9 wins? I'll hold you to that. I'm going to say 5 wins.
I'll tell you, Mr. Bill, and I know your real name, and I'm not going to say it on the air, but
I would appreciate that. Don't violate any of the laws of journalism here.
if they don't get to 9 wins, I'll take you out for dinner. All right.
All
On
right.
me. On me. You can
So
get
they have to
drinks.
get you exactly 9 wins. Thanks.
That's going to be very
That's
difficult.
very nice of you, Brendan. I have not been doing particularly well. Some of the businesses have not been going as well as you know. So it would be helpful. Okay, so they have to get exactly 9 wins or you buy me dinner. Great.
9 or more. If they have under 9 wins, I owe you.
All right, I'll take that bet. That sounds good to me.
All right. Well, I think we're probably short on time here with a couple minutes left. And first, I want to thank you for joining the podcast and rejoining the league. Second,
anything for you, my friend.
I do want to let the league know we'll try to touch a little bit more on the fantasy football league in the future, but with the Brady week, I had a lot of fun talking about that and going back and forth with you. So I'm glad that we stuck on that as a topic. Anything else you want to talk about here before we wrap things up?
Well, of particular interest, I wanted to go over this fantasy football trade, but with the limited time left, I want to get your opinion on who has the best fantasy team and why.
In the league right now, oh man.
And please don't say what I think you're gonna say.
What? I certainly don't think myself. I'm 0-3. I think my opponent this week has the best team at the current moment in time, and that's Matt Green. He's got Russell Wilson. He's got the Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon. I love that he has two guys that get a lot of volume there. I mean, you're a volume guy too, like the old Cedric Benson. I mean, Mixon and Henry get the ball at least 20 times a game. Robert Woods has to turn it around at some point, and he's got Terry McLaurin, Kareem Hunt, Jacoby Myers, a guy who's a good flex. And his bench is pretty strong with Jamal Williams, Alexander Madison. Judy's going to come back for him. So I like what Matt's done, and I think Matt is a really dangerous team. And I'm unfortunately playing him this week with I really need a win to go to 1-3. So it's gonna be tough, but I do like what he did, and also like getting Gronk late and having some trust there. And he's had a real hot start to the year. So currently, I would put my chips on Matt.
And do you think your team is going to make the playoffs this year? Do you have any hope?
I absolutely have hope. I'm 0-3, but there's an extra game this year. Alex's team the last 2 seasons started 0-3 and went back and made the playoffs. I'm currently middle of the pack, 6th in points for, and I'm 12th. I am by a mile the team that's had the most points scored against me. So end of the day, we're playing a game of luck, and it hasn't been on my side to start the season. But yeah, absolutely. Even if I lose this week, I believe I can come back and make the playoffs. Whether I do or not, well, again, this is a game of probability, and the probability is much lower at 0-3 and 0-4 than it was at the start of the season. So if I'm a betting man, I'm probably not putting my chips there, but I'm going to go down swinging. I'm going to scratch and claw and try every single week to get back in this.
And who do you think on your team has to step up in these next couple weeks for you to get some wins here?
To segue into the trade, I'm gonna have to say, maybe Lamar Jackson becomes my guy. I won a championship with him in 2019. I have him back on my squad. I think he's a true dual threat quarterback. I'm glad to have him back, and can he pull me out of this hole?
And for those of you listening at home, there was a recent trade. Brandon, do you want to go over it?
Yeah, let's go over it to end the show.
All right, you can go ahead. You can start. You're the host here.
All right. Point taken. Yeah, we did a trade this week, myself and the co-managers, and I dealt them Chuba Hubbard, the backup to Christian McCaffrey, and along with Chase Claypool in exchange for Odell Beckham Jr. and Lamar Jackson. And in the negotiations, it seemed like from Krieger's end that Krieger and you, although I'm sure you're going to get into it, it seemed like it was a lot of Krieger, uh, where Krieger felt, with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, that Lamar was expendable. And also, just looking at the running back situation without Christian McCaffrey, you only had two other backs on the roster, one of which was Tony Jones, who just doesn't get enough work. Waivers are terrible. So having Chuba Hubbard was absolutely essential, and he paid the price to get him.
Yeah, I think so. Krieger is during season trades, all that kind of stuff, pickups, drops. I drafted the team. We both wanted, to ease our way back into this league. I was, a little frightened at what this league had become, and I didn't want to come in here alone. It's kind of scary when you're back and you're not sure what's going to happen with Alex as commissioner. So I needed some. I think we both needed some backup coming back into this league, easing back into it. I do think Krieger made a very smart move. Kirk Cousins definitely has been putting up some numbers. It gets us running back, and we really need it if we're gonna win. And who knows how long McCaffrey's gonna be out? The guy gets so much production that he's bound to keep getting injured.
I agree with you, and I will say, I was watching that game Thursday night. I have no fab left because I spent all my fab week one on Elijah Mitchell. Different story, but I after waivers ran, the only guy I was like, maybe I'll just hold Chuba Hubbard for the Thursday night game, see if Christian McCaffrey gets hurt. He gets hurt, and I'm like, holy shit! Like I just got wicked lucky to be holding this guy. And Hubbard looked good. I did a little bit more digging today. He's actually a former track star. He was one of the top running back prospects in this year's class. Up until last year, had a whole hum college season. So he's a talented guy who's really explosive, and I thought he looked awesome on Thursday night once he was given the role. And yeah, I know some people will say Royce Freeman mixed in, but what really was just a mix in. Like Chuba Hubbard had the role. He's gonna that offense. You saw what happened last year when Mike Davis went in. Uh, David Krieger spent all his fab on Mike Davis and ended up being like 8 weeks or something, whatever it was. And Mike Davis was a running back one during that time. I think Hubbard's more talented than Davis. So I think he's going to be close to a running back one while he's in there. And to your point, like, I know people are like, oh, he's not on IR, could only be a couple of weeks, but hamstring injuries really get re-aggravated quick. And with your team makeup, like, great if Christian McCaffrey comes back, but I think you guys would probably hold Hubbard going forward the whole season because he looks good and he should be able to cover that position for you while he's gone.
Yeah, I don't think we really had another option. If McCaffrey's out and we don't do the trade, we're dependent on the waiver wire, and there's really no one there. But from your perspective, Brendan, why did you do the trade?
I did the trade for, this is the funny because when you guys first told me, I reached out, I was like, hey, you guys are probably looking for running back help. What do you want for Chuba Hubbard? And Krieger listed off the two quarterbacks, and then Antonio Brown and Odell Beckham. And my team's 0-3. I just felt like I needed another flex option. So I was like, Beckham's the choice, but I used to have a Lamar Jackson jersey behind me. And the reason I did was I won a championship with him. So I was like, there's a chance to get Lamar. Like, what would I have to add in to get Lamar and Odell Beckham? And that's when you guys came back and you're like, hey, add in Chase Claypool. And to me, Claypool and Odell Beckham are about the same. I don't really have a horse in that race between the two of them. I like both players. And then it was a chance to trade Hubbard for Lamar. And I think Lamar might be my quarterback going forward over Dak. And then I can try to see if there's any interest in the trade market for Dak Prescott.
Interesting strategy. I think your team has a lot of depth now. Absolutely. So it seems like it was a good trade for both sides.
Alex has been calling it highway robbery and telling me that I ripped you guys off, and I was like, this is nothing compared to the Jarvis Landry for Odell Beckham and Darren Waller that went through last year.
Yeah, I again, it comes back to I think there's been a lot of sketchy things happening in this league, and we need an alliance. We need to get the Tims back. We need to get the Burnses back. We need to
So
get Krieger on a separate team, not combined with me. We need to have these people to regulate.
so can I quickly before we end here, I do want to clarify something because it's funny when people, leave the league, they come back and we make jokes that Krieger was on probation one year. The year Krieger was on probation, he never accepted his invite to the league and then ended up missing the season. But then, Albert Ding never said no, he didn't want to return. I believe he might not have reached out to Chris Burns this year, but we reached out multiple times for Chris Burns. I think last year we did, and he said, no, I'm not interested. The year Tim and yourself left, Mr. Anonymous, we reached out to both you guys and there wasn't any interest. I don't know if we got a response either. So we loved the organization we had and the people we had. You can call it a rivalry if you want between me and Burns, but it was nice having him in the league and we invited him back and he didn't return. So we have nothing against them. The spots seem to open up all the time. Would love to have any of them back, if they're interested. So just wanted to clarify
We
that.
would appreciate that. Yeah, if there's an open spot, I think that would be great. I obviously appreciate the people in the league now, but I think we do have to start. When you have a group that discusses the trades together, I think you get something out of that. I think you do get people really looking at the trade and seeing, is this fair, instead of just letting everything go through. But I
Yeah, but
agree with
I don't think it should be a matter of if it's fair or not, because I think like Alex in this instance, like our trade, right? He doesn't think it's fair. So should it get rejected? I don't think so, because all that matters is I had a reason for doing the deal and like the deal. And you guys had a reason for doing the deal and like the deal. So it's like, if it's fair, like, I don't know, it's tough, I think that's a matter of perspective. But I think to your point, when you brought up the example about, trading for Julian Edelman, there are levels of fairness and there is a level of unfairness that rises to a point where that, it's just going to hurt the integrity of the league. And something like that, I think, like, could use some regulation.
Yeah, I agree. I just think we need, the alliance I think was beneficial. I know you've always been a big, anti-alliance that was forming at
Well,
the
was I
time.
anti-alliance? I feel like I played both sides. I don't think I was part of the alliance, but
You
you
came
know,
to us when you needed us. At one point, we had a lot of power, and you came over and you were nice to us, and then things changed, and we got dismantled.
Yeah, well, I think you dismantled yourselves was the thing, but we tried to bring everyone
Debatable.
back. But that's why Alex is commissioner. End of the day, people were leaving, people had lost interest, and then Alex, kept us going, kept us afloat, and now we're back, we're recovering. And I want to make it clear too. I love the people we've added to this league. I think we've added some really good owners, and I'm not looking to kick anyone out. That'd be the worst thing for
Absolutely
me.
not.
I'm not, but it does seem at the end of every season, one or two people end up leaving. I know it sounds like Tony Macchia is going through some tough times. We hope the best for him. We would love to have him back too. So yeah, no, it always seems like there are extra spots and we'll be asking them. So hopefully, you can convince them to return when that time comes.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to reach out to members, former members, try to get them back in the league if there are open spots.
All right. Well, we appreciate that, and we appreciate you joining. I believe you'll be on weekly. Is that true?
I don't know if I've been offered a contract or a spot yet, but I mean, if I'm offered one, I will. I
Well,
will definitely attend weekly.
consider this your official offer. We'll do either Wednesdays or Thursdays. And I know there was a delay yesterday, but we'll be doing this weekly. We'll mix in some league talk. We'll definitely recap the Tampa Bay game next week. And thank you for joining. It's great to have you back in the league. It's great to have you on the podcast. Miss talking to you, miss having you on. So I truly appreciate it.
Thanks, PG.
And for all our listeners, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week for this version of the All Aboard podcast. I'm your host, Brandon. For our guest, Mr. Bill, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.